March 6th, 2008, Bangkok hotel room. Victor Bout just agreed to sell 100 surface-to-air missiles to shoot down American helicopters. The buyer slides $20 million across the table. Bout doesn't flinch. He's done this for 20 years. His cargo planes have delivered 700 tons of weapons to Africa's bloodiest wars. AK-47s that armed Charles Taylor's child soldiers, grenades that destroyed villages in Angola, anti-aircraft guns that killed UN peacekeepers. This one man has fueled more death than most armies. But here's what Bout doesn't know. The buyers aren't Colombian rebels. The money isn't real. And Thai police are already in the elevator. The DEA just spent 3 years and $10 million setting this trap. Because Victor Bout made one fatal mistake. He said yes to the wrong deal. After outsmarting Interpol, the UN, and every intelligence agency on Earth, the Merchant of Death is about to learn he's been talking to undercover agents for the last 4 hours. Who convinced him to break protocol? And how did one sting destroy everything? December 1991. Soviet military bases hemorrhage equipment. In a Moscow hangar, Victor Anatolyevich Bout watches mechanics strip an Antonov An-12 for parts others see scrap metal worth $30,000. Bout sees a cargo plane that can haul 40 tons into dirt airstrips where legitimate airlines won't land. The 24-year-old speaks 6 languages fluently: Russian, English, Portuguese, French, Arabic, and Farsi. His military discharge papers list translator, but omit his side business: buying decommissioned aircraft with cash from sources no one asks about. Bout acquires 3 Antonov cargo planes for $120,000 each. Soviet pilots, desperate for dollars after their salaries evaporated with the Union, line up to fly them in 1992. While Yeltsin battles parliament, Bout registers air cess in Liberia, a country that asks 0 questions about cargo manifests. His first legitimate contract is flying French peacekeepers to Rwanda for $90,000. His second is delivering crates marked agricultural equipment to Jonas Savimbi's UNITA rebels in Angola. But the crates contain RPG-7 launchers. The math is beautiful. A used AK-47 costs $10 in Ukraine's flooded weapons market. That same rifle sells for $200 in Monrovia, and one flight can carry 10,000 rifles. Bout's overhead is easy to track: fuel, bribes, and forged end-user certificates that transform weapons into mining equipment, with a rubber stamp from the right Angolan official. By 1995, he's running flights from Sharjah to Kandahar, Ostend to Kigali, delivering baby formula on Monday and bullets on Thursday. He tells his pilots a simple rule over Stolichnaya in a Sharjah safe house. The manifest says farm equipment. If customs asks, you're hauling farm equipment. If rebels unload Kalashnikovs, that's their business, not yours. One pilot, Sergei Denisenko, later testifies that Bout paid triple rates for flights into active combat zones, $5,000 cash per trip, no questions, no receipts. By 1997, Bout operates from 7 shell companies across 4 continents: Airpass in South Africa, Sanair in Swaziland, and Transavia Travel in Belgium. Each company owns planes registered to other companies in an ownership maze that would take forensic accountants years to untangle. A Liberian warlord needs ammunition for his child soldiers. Bout's planes land at Roberts International Airport with crates labeled sporting goods. Afghan Northern Alliance Commander Ahmad Shah Massoud requires anti-tank mines. Bout delivers them stamped industrial machinery, then flies the same planes to arm Massoud's Taliban enemies 2 weeks later. But who else was making these deliveries? And how many wars burned on fuel Bout provided? By 1999, Victor Bout commands 50 cargo aircraft, more than Kenya Airways. His fleet generates $50 million annually. though Swiss investigators later estimate the real figure at $300 million when you count the diamonds Charles Taylor pays for shipments with rough diamonds pulled from Sierra Leone's blood-soaked mines. One 2-carat stone buys a crate of grenades. A handful purchases an attack helicopter, disassembled and marked oil rig parts. The operation runs on clockwork brutality. Bout's Il-76 lands in Monrovia at 2 a.m. and takes 40 minutes to unload 10,000 AK-47s and 2 million rounds. The crew never leaves the cockpit. Payment happens through Lebanese middlemen who wire funds to Cyprus, then the Seychelles, finally landing in Bout's Swiss accounts under names like Worldwide Express and Global Transport Solutions. UN investigators later trace one payment, $7 million for a single shipment of T-55 tanks to Angola's government, who used them to shell villages held by UNITA, the same rebels Bout armed the previous month. In 2000, British intelligence photographs one of Bout's Antonovs on a Kandahar runway. The cargo, anti-aircraft guns for the Taliban. 6 months later, the same plane delivers medical supplies to the Northern Alliance. Peter Hain, British Foreign Office Minister, calls Bout the principal conduit for planes and supply routes that take arms from Eastern Europe, principally Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine, to Liberia and Angola. Bout responds through his lawyer, "I'm a businessman. I don't choose sides." And he literally means that here's what choosing no sides looks like. In Afghanistan, Bout's crews fly munitions to Ahmad Shah Massoud. On Tuesday on Friday, they deliver ammunition to the Taliban forces trying to kill Massoud. Both sides pay in American dollars, carried in duffel bags that Bout's brother Sergei personally counts in Dubai safe houses. One pilot refuses to fly after discovering his agricultural supplies are actually landmines. Bout replaces him within 6 hours and the new pilot doesn't ask questions. 2001 changes everything. After September 11th, the US military needs cargo capacity in Afghanistan. Who has planes that can land on bombed-out runways? Victor Bout. His companies win Pentagon subcontracts worth millions, flying supplies for American forces, hunting the same Taliban he armed months earlier. A US official later admits, "We knew who Bout was, but he had what we needed, heavy lift capacity in a war zone." While DEA agents build cases against him, Bout's planes deliver boots to US soldiers. The audacity peaks in 2003. A Bout-owned Ilyushin flies Red Cross supplies into Baghdad. The manifest lists medical equipment. Iraqi police discover the real cargo. 100 sniper rifles and 200,000 rounds of ammunition. Bout denies involvement and claims he sold that plane months ago. The buyer? Another Bout shell company, registered in Equatorial Guinea. His tentacles stretch everywhere. When Moldovan authorities raid a warehouse in 2004, they find documentation for Bout deliveries. 1,000 Igla surface-to-air missiles headed to an agricultural firm in Burkina Faso. The missile's actual destination, Côte d'Ivoire's civil war for a price of $18 million, paid in 3 installments to accounts in Latvia, Gibraltar, and the UAE. How long before someone stops the man who treats weapons like wheat? And what does it take to catch someone who owns the airports he flies through? By 2002, Victor Bout's name appears in classified cables from Bangkok to Bogota. UN investigator Johan Pelleman produces a 90-page report documenting Bout's network. 300 shell companies, 60 aircraft and operations in 50 countries. The report's title, Arms Fixers and Their Airlines. Bout's photo occupies page 1. The UN Security Council issues travel bans and asset freezes. Bout simply creates new companies, registers planes to his wife Ala, and continues flying. The DEA assigns Operation Relentless, a task force of 8 agents dedicated solely to catching Bout. They map his network on a warehouse wall in Virginia. red string connecting Sharjah to Kinshasa, Tiraspol to Monrovia. Agent Mike Braun, who leads the operation, studies every intercepted phone call, every flight plan, every suspicious wire transfer. Bout was discipline incarnate. Braun later says, never used email, changed phones every 3 days, and paid everyone in cash. By 2004, Belgian prosecutors issue an arrest warrant for money laundering. Bout's response is to stop flying to Europe. Later, in 2005, the U.S. Treasury Department freezes his American assets, but Bout already moved everything offshore. In 2006, the Interpol issues a red notice, and Bout relocates to Moscow, where Russia refuses all extradition requests. The wall closes in, but Bout adapts like Mercury. He stops traveling to Africa, instead sending his brother Sergei. He abandons his Sharjah office, operates from a Moscow apartment. He switches from satellite phones to encrypted messaging through intermediaries. When a reporter tracks him down in Moscow in 2003, Bout agrees to an interview. He arrives in a black Mercedes, wearing a $5,000 suit. "I'm a victim of propaganda," he says, sipping Armenian cognac. The DEA tries everything. They pressure small countries to arrest Bout if he lands. They freeze accounts in Cyprus. Bout had already emptied them. They flip 3 of his pilots, who provide flight logs and photos. But nothing sticks. Bout hasn't personally touched a weapon in years. Every crime happens through cutouts, and shell companies' prosecutors can prove his planes carried weapons, but can't prove Bout ordered it. Then Mike Braun proposes something radical. If they can't catch Bout for past crimes, why not catch him committing a future one? The DEA has been running successful stings against drug cartels using a simple formula. Undercover agents pose as buyers, record everything, and arrest during the handover. But Bout doesn't meet new clients. He works through established networks built over decades, unless... What if the clients represented someone Bout couldn't refuse? Someone whose ideology aligned with his apparent anti-American stance? Who hates America enough that Bout would break protocol? January 2008. DEA Headquarters, Virginia. Mike Braun briefs 2 undercover operatives who will pose as FARC representatives, Colombia's Marxist rebels who've killed dozens of Americans. The cover story is simple. The FARC wants surface-to-air missiles to shoot down U.S. helicopters, assisting the Colombian government. The bait is a deal worth $20 million in cash, plus cocaine trafficking routes as payment. 2 confidential informants, former drug traffickers turned DEA assets, will make introductions claiming they've worked with FARC for years. The DEA studies everything about Bout. His favorite drinks, Armenian cognac. His interests, languages and philosophy. His pressure points, money and ideology. They need him to leave Russia, where he's untouchable. The informants reach out through Bout's associate Andrew Smuggler, offering the massive deal. Smuggler, desperate for money after his own arms business collapsed, bites immediately. February 2008. First contact. Smuggler emails Bout about our Colombian friends who need serious equipment. Bout responds within hours, unusual for someone so careful. The money is enormous, but something else hooks him. The chance to strike at America. Since his indictment, Bout's rhetoric has turned increasingly anti-Western. He tells Russian media that America destroyed his legitimate business out of jealousy. Here's a chance for payback. The DEA records everything. Smuggler visits Bout in Moscow and returns with a confirmation. Bout will supply 100 Igla missiles, 20,000 AK-47s, 10 million rounds, C4 explosives, ultralight aircraft, and unmanned drones. Everything for $20 million up front and cocaine shipments as balance. But Bout won't leave Russia for negotiations. The fake FARC representatives insist on meeting face to face. Trust requires looking into a man's eyes. They suggest Romania. Bout counters with Montenegro. After weeks of negotiation, they compromise. Bangkok, where Bout has old connections and feels safe. March 4th, 2008. The undercover team arrives in Bangkok. Wires hidden in their clothes, briefcases, and even shoe heels. Thai police, briefed by the DEA, shadow every move. Bout flies in from Moscow on a commercial flight. Travels under his real name, breathtaking arrogance or total confidence in his protection. He checks into the Sofitel Hotel under a false name, then immediately calls the meeting for March 6th. The morning of March 6th, Bout enters the conference room carrying a manila folder. Inside, photos of aircraft, maps of Africa with hand-drawn flight routes, a list of weapons written in his distinctive handwriting. The DEA has cameras in the air conditioning vents, microphones in the lamp fixtures. Every word is recorded and every gesture filmed. What Bout says next will determine whether 20 years of manhunts end today or whether the ghost slips away again. How much rope will Bout give them to hang him with? March 6th, 2008, 2:30 p.m. Sofitel Hotel conference room. Bout spreads aircraft photos across the table like a dealer showing cards. The undercover agents lean in, asking about the missiles. Bout pulls out a calculator, punches numbers. 100 Iglas, 20,000 Kalashnikovs, 10 million rounds. I can move this in 2 flights, maybe 3. The lead undercover agent, Carlos, pushes the critical question. You know these weapons will kill Americans? Bout sets down his pen. 5 seconds of silence that feel like 5 minutes. Then he laughs, not nervous, but genuine amusement. We have the same enemy. He draws a route on the map from Moldova through North Africa to Colombia. The Americans made me their enemy. Now I return the favor. Bout details the operation with frightening precision. The weapons will be listed as oil equipment. He'll use pilots who've flown this route before. Ukrainians who need money and don't ask questions. Payment happens in 3 stages. Wire transfer to Cyprus, cash in Dubai, and cocaine profits laundered through West African banks. He even offers extras, like ultralight aircraft perfect for drug smuggling. Consider them gifts between partners. The second undercover agent asks about end-user certificates. The documents proving weapons are for legitimate governments. Bout waves dismissively. I have a man in Togo. $5,000 gets any certificate you need. The UN inspectors see paper and they go away happy. He names specific customs officials in Romania, Bulgaria, and Sudan who are friends. Each name is another federal charge, another piece of evidence. 3:47 p.m. Bout stands to shake hands. Deal concluded. The undercover agents give the signal, scratching their left ears simultaneously. The door explodes inward. Thai police stream in, shouting in Thai and English. Bout doesn't run. He doesn't reach for a weapon. He stands perfectly still, that half smile frozen on his face, like he always knew this moment would come. As they cuff him, he says one word in English. Finally. The DEA agents search Bout's hotel room, finding multiple passports, $50,000 in cash, and encrypted phones. But the real prize is in that conference room. Bout's handwritten notes detailing the entire transaction, his maps showing weapons routes, and 4 hours of crystal-clear video showing him planning to kill Americans. After 20 years of shadows and shell companies, Victor Bout has finally given them what they needed. His own words, his own writing, his own confession. The Thai government holds Bout while America and Russia battle over his fate. Moscow claims he's a legitimate businessman entrapped by American lies. Washington presents the tapes. Bout laughing about dead Americans, calculating how many missiles it takes to down a helicopter. The Thai court deliberates for 2 years, political pressure mounting from both superpowers. In November 2010, they rule, Bout will be extradited to America. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov calls it political kidnapping. Bout's wife Alla tells reporters her husband was building hospitals in Africa while America was bombing civilians in Iraq. But on November 16, 2010, a DEA jet lifts off from Bangkok with Victor Bout shackled inside. 20 hours later, he lands in New York. The Merchant of Death will finally face American justice. Or will he? What card does Moscow still hold? November 2011, Manhattan Federal Court. Prosecutors play the Bangkok recordings for 12 jurors. They hear Bout explain how to hide anti-aircraft missiles in agricultural shipments. They watch him draw flight paths that avoid radar. They see him calculate how many Americans his weapons could kill. Bout's lawyer claims entrapment. His client was just talking, never delivered actual weapons. The jury deliberates for 4 days. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to kill Americans, providing support to terrorists and weapons trafficking. In April 2012, Bout stands for sentencing. 25 years in federal prison, the mandatory minimum. As guards lead him away, Bout shouts, "This is political. I'm innocent." His voice echoes down empty corridors. Bout vanishes into the U.S. penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, with supermax security. 23 hours daily in a concrete cell. He teaches himself new languages, Hindi and Turkish, maintains his innocence in letters to Russian media. Outside, the wars he fed continue with new suppliers. Arms dealers study his mistakes, never meet new clients, never discuss killing Americans on tape, and never write anything down. But Moscow doesn't forget. Russian officials mention Bout in every diplomatic meeting. They propose prisoner swaps, Bout for American spies, Bout for cyber criminals, Bout for anyone, but Washington refuses every offer. The DEA agents who caught him received death threats from Russian nationalists. Mike Braun sleeps with a loaded Glock. Time passes and Bout serves 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. His hair grays, his shoulders stoop, but his letters remain defiant. "I will return to Russia," he writes in 2019. Politics change, presidents change, but Russia remembers her sons. In February 2022, Russia invades Ukraine, and in December 2022, the WNBA star Brittany Griner sits in a Russian prison for cannabis possession, 9 years for 2 vape cartridges. The Biden administration needs her home before she becomes a permanent political liability. Russia names its price: Victor Bout. The DEA erupts. Former agents call it surrender to hostage-taking, victims of wars. Bout fueled condemned trading a death merchant for an athlete. December 8, 2022, Abu Dhabi International Airport. There are 2 planes on an empty tarmac, and Victor Bout emerges from the Russian aircraft, 14 pounds lighter, smiling like he won the lottery. Brittany Griner walks from the American plane. They pass without acknowledgement, each heading home. Bout embraces his wife on Russian soil for the first time in 12 years. Within days, Bout joins an ultra-nationalist political party, wins a regional assembly seat, and appears on propaganda shows supporting the Ukraine invasion. When asked about returning to arms dealing, he smiles. "Why would I? Russia has everything I need." The camera catches something in his eyes that suggests otherwise. American intelligence monitors his every move, every call, and every contact with old associates. They know what reporters don't. 3 of Bout's former pilots have reactivated dormant companies. Shell corporations in Serbia and Belarus have started chartering cargo flights. The routes look familiar. Eastern Europe to Africa, Africa to the Middle East. The ghost is stirring. In his Moscow apartment, Bout keeps a map on his wall. Red pins mark his old routes. Blue pins mark something new, routes he never flew, countries he never supplied. The Merchant of Death is home. Older, perhaps wiser, certainly unbroken. The world watches, wondering if the man who armed 50 wars has truly retired, or if he's simply waiting for his moment. Some ghosts, after all, never really die. They just learn to fly under different flags. Want to see another Russian who made governments panic? Check out my video on The Man Who Defied Every Government to discover how Pavel Durov built an empire that made him even more untouchable than the Merchant of Death, until the day French police proved nobody is beyond reach.